Oh, hi. Hi, folks. Welcome to another bonus episode of Science Fiction Book Club. Sorry, you caught me in the middle of sniffing my co-host Opsa's pheromones, who I'm obsessed with. Welcome back to another bonus episode of Science Fiction Book Club. Opsa, great to see you. My name's Abu, everyone. We are here to talk once again about Murderbot, the TV show on Apple TV+. We already talked about episodes 1 and 2 last week. Today, we are here to talk about episode 3, which is out now. What did you think about this episode of television, Opsa?
Yeah, I think, I'm finding that Murderbot is on a roll. I mean, we're getting more of what we got in the first 2 episodes, and that's either hitting the right spot for you or it is digging, it's pouring salt onto a wound.
Yeah.
Depending on how you felt about the books and how you felt about the first 2 episodes. I'm finding, again, that the comedy is, it's working for me. It's nothing that offensive. We're seeing the crew start to have a little more complicated feelings towards Murderbot as they're wondering and they're kind of suspicious about its behavior. Obviously, we have the wonderful Dr. Mensa trying to coax the rest of the crew into accepting Murderbot as a person. We have Murderbot, of course, wanting nothing of the sort. And they head out to investigate the mystery around Deltfall. And the show is starting to pick up some stakes. Like we're clearly, at a moment when Preservation Ox is under more threat than just the local wildlife and fauna. So I don't know. It still has my attention. It is still perhaps my attention split between 2 screens, but
yeah.
But in any case, I don't have too many complaints at the moment. How about you?
I think all of my complaints from episodes 1 and 2 still stand here in 3.
Yeah.
Things have not course corrected for me yet, so I won't rehash too much of that. Comedy not really working for me, overly goofy, the crew not really working for me. Gurathin's creepiness towards Mensa was just maybe a bit that I didn't need at all in the show.
Fair.
Alex Skarsgård as Murderbot, still working for me.
Yeah.
The set design and the costumes, the overall visual aesthetic of the show still continues to work for me. I really liked that we visited the Deltfall crew's nicer observation post, right? And we got to see some of the planet, right? There were some nice shots of like some weird looking plants and stuff as we approached
crab creatures,
the crab creatures.
Right.
So I liked the visual aesthetic choices there. And I liked that we saw a little bit of the planet that these folks are on. Speaking of visuals, this is very minor, but at the end of the episode, Murderbot does this thing where it predicts the attack of the other sec unit, right? And we get the like AI visual of it, and then Murderbot is able to counterattack.
Right.
I thought that was kind of cool. It was kind of like Sherlock Holmesy. I don't know if you've seen the RDJ's Sherlock Holmes movies.
Yeah.
But that I thought was always very clever and fun to watch in those films, and we got some of that here in the show too. So.
Yeah. It did strike me as a little curious, I will say. I didn't quite know why Murderbot had the ability to predict the more, I guess, like recent upgraded model, actions.
That's true.
Well, that said, Murderbot watches. Don't think about it. No plot holes here.
No, you're also right. Murderbot watches a lot of TV, so
does watch a lot of TV. So probably has seen that episode of Sherlock Holmes and that movie.
That's right. That's right. You watch enough kung fu movies, kung fu. That's how it works.
That's how it works.
Okay, so let's talk about kind of the fact that, at least as far as I'm concerned, not much happened in this episode.
Yeah.
And given that we're now 3 episodes in, how is the pacing of the show landing for you? Are you okay with kind of coming in every Friday and watching an episode of just kind of nothing happening? Or wow, could that have been a more leading question?
you okay with watching nothing happen? Do you enjoy watching paint dry?
Yeah, I phrased that absolutely wrong, but I guess my question is just, how is the pace working for you? Are you invested in coming back week after week and watching a new episode?
I will say, I feel like there is a right and a wrong answer to this one.
Don't you get it wrong or I'll cut off your feed. Don't you?
Yeah. No, I think the point you raise in your question is a good one. The pacing is curious. I have to believe that within an episode or two, we will be shifting to book 2 in this series, because really, I mean, the pacing is a little tough, to be to be totally honest.
Yeah.
It really, like when I was going through my notes for her episode here, I mean, there are very few notes on the plot because only 2 or 3 things happen, and those could probably have collapsed into the same bullet if I wasn't trying to really milk it.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to really focus on the characters, but we've talked about how rather kind of silly and shallow they are.
Yeah.
So it's a little tough. I will say Gurathin, I find to be a pretty interesting character. I think the weird interlude with him in Dr. Mensa's room was, I agree, quite unnecessary and really didn't add anything to the story of the show here. But I will say his kind of continued suspicions of Murderbot, to me, feel rather appropriate. I mean, he is the only one that's really, onto the fact that they have a rogue sec unit that is in fact a killing machine, in their midst. And I find the contrast of his kind of unlikability, but also, like sensibility to be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think that's kind of my take at the moment.
Yeah. And that kind of leads me to my one other bullet point on this episode, which is, I agree. Like right now, if I were to stop and ask myself 3 episodes in, who am I sort of emotionally invested in as far as these characters go? Who do I want to see more of, learn more of?
Right.
Who's really facing some challenges, internal and external, as a character in this series? I guess Mensa so far is interesting to me, but I agree with you that Gurathin so far is the standout character within the Preservation Augs crew, mostly because he seems to be the only smart one, kind of like who's maybe onto things.
Right.
He's not signing any throuple contracts. He's like seemingly out here to do work, which is why they came out here in the first place.
Right.
And I think he right now is the primary tension with Murderbot. Murderbot doesn't want to get caught. Gurathin is basically onto it, that there's a rogue sec unit here. Right. So, yeah, the other 3, honestly, I just don't have anything to say. Rati and Pinley, and I guess Dr. Bardwaj comes back, and we get somewhat of a scene here where Bardwaj is dealing with the PTSD from being attacked by a creature and nearly being bitten in half.
Right, by the sandworm.
By the Dune sandworm, Shai Hulud himself. So yeah, I guess that's my land on the characters and story so far. Is like, I'm not feeling invested. As you stated, the pace is very slow and very rough.
Yeah,
it felt like this episode, nothing happened. If anything, like if I had been Apple, I almost would have done a 3-episode drop that first week to just get us through this first 3 stuff as quickly as possible, because it feels like we ended on enough of like a mystery and a cliffhanger that like 4 is maybe where things will actually start to happen.
Right.
And I almost think it would have been more strategic to drop 1, 2, 3 at once, introduce the characters, introduce some conflict, introduce a big mystery, and then do week by week. But I don't get paid $4.7 million to be an executive at Apple making these decisions.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with all of that. Dr. Mensa, I will say I am less a fan of than I think you are. primarily because Dr. Mensa, just as much as the rest of the crew, seems a little hapless and a little foolish. Like continues to persist in taking actions that clearly will lead to harm, and especially as the leader of the crew here, you would expect a level of maturity and kind of responsibility that I don't really currently see in Dr. Mensa, which is a little disappointing, because I will say again, of the books, you otherwise have these really strong kind of sensible scientists, engineers, and kind of, and particularly I will say, like, on the gender side of things, like I'm like, okay, these are great, well written, female characters, and then we get the show, and I'm kind of like, who do I root for now? It's just a little tough.
I agree. Okay, last thing before we call it a day here on episode 3. You mentioned book 2.
Yeah.
We seem to be quickly breezing through book 1. 3 episodes in, we're already at Deltafall. We're already scoping things out there.
I don't know if I'd say breezing through, but but point taken.
But I think you're right. If we're only 3 episodes in, we still have 7 more to go. Plenty of television left to go.
Totally.
But we're kind of already in the 3rd act of the first book.
Yeah.
By this point, or at least easily over the halfway point.
Right.
Do you think we're getting into book 2? Do you think we're going to meet Art and some of the characters from the 2nd book that we covered on the show? Or do you think we're going to extend this mystery out into 10 episodes and stay within the bounds of book 1?
Yeah. I mean, I will be honest, I rather enjoyed book 2 and Art in particular, and I find that there's a lot that happens in book 2. Like, it feels like a bit more anyways than in book 1, and maybe that's just because I've read book 2 more recently. But I don't know. I mean, if I had to make a prediction, I think I'll actually have to go back and say I think we end up staying in book 1 for this season, and I kind of feel like that's the right choice, perhaps. I mean, I would love to see book 2 make it to kind of full production, and if they continue with the pacing and the development of this particular series as they have, I'm somewhat doubtful we'll get a season 2.
Yeah,
I mean, we'll see. We're only 3 episodes in, obviously.
We'll see. Yeah.
But I think right now my prediction is that we end up sticking to book 1, and there's just a bit more deviation from the book than we've had so far.
Right.
But
maybe flesh it out, add a bit more drama.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
I think I agree.
Yeah. Are you following? Yeah, I guess in the same boat then.
I do. Yeah, I agree. I think we're going to stay within the confines of book 1 and probably flesh things out a little bit.
Yeah.
Fill it out a little bit more and turn it into a season of television.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get some flashbacks of Murderbot's kind of, I will say the one slight deviation in this season so far is that Murderbot doesn't seem to be totally aware of what happened at Kanaka Pit and its kind of culpability there. Yeah. It just has these like very brief flashbacks where it appears that there's some massacre that it may have participated in.
Right.
So there's not quite as much like internal wrestling with what that all means. And I wonder if maybe that's what we'll get in the back half of the season.
Yeah.
Just some more flashbacks to that.
Yeah. Could be interesting. All right, then. There it is, folks. There's our quick little chat about Murderbot episode 3 on Apple TV Plus. Of course, we will be back next Friday to cover the next episode of the show, and every Friday afterwards as we work our way through this TV show and talk about it week by week. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, if you're interested in checking out the books that we've covered, check the links in the show notes below. If you want to be a part of these conversations and join our nerdy little sci-fi loving community, please join the Discord. It's absolutely free to do so. Sign up for our Patreon. We have bonus clips and bloopers and reading materials. all of that is absolutely free to sign up for. Just check out those links in the show notes.
That's right.
Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.